Hello everyone, you can call me RBB. Today we are going to take a look at the tragic story of Tasha together and how she was murdered by her bestie. But before we move forward, if you've ever had a horrible incident in your life, you can share it with us using the email in the description box. Your story might soon be featured on our growing channel. It was in the year 2024. The rain fell in sheets that night, slicking the roads and blurring the lights of the small neighborhood in Savannah, Georgia. Inside the modest two-story home on Willow Creek Lane, laughter echoed, the kind that only comes from years of shared memories, inside jokes, and unwavering trust. Simone Hart and Tasha Willis had been best friends since grade school. Where Simone was wild and spontaneous, Tasha was grounded and nurturing. Life had not been kind to Simone in the past year. She lost her apartment after falling behind on rent, and she was barely holding onto a string of dead-end jobs that left her exhausted and broke. Tasha, ever the loyal friend, didn't think twice before offering Simone a room in her home. Her husband, Marcus, had hesitated at first, and maybe, if Tasha had listened to him, everything would have been different. Maybe she'd still be alive. But Tasha always followed her heart. Their marriage was only 2 years old, although their bond stretched back longer. Their son, Jamari, a bright-eyed 4-year-old, was the living proof of the love they shared long before rings were exchanged. Marcus loved Tasha with a ferocity few men could replicate. He worked hard to provide, often pulling overtime at the construction company he co-owned with his cousin. And he tolerated Simone, if only because he loved his wife more than his own comfort. What no one saw, what Tasha refused to see, was the darkness festering behind Simone's dazzling smile and soulful brown eyes. Simone had never forgiven Tasha for winning. Tasha had everything Simone wanted: a loving husband, a beautiful son, a cozy home. She had stability, the one thing Simone's life had sorely lacked. And the longer Simone lived under that roof, the more resentment boiled inside her. It started with small things. Simone would wear tighter clothes around Marcus, laugh a little too hard at his jokes. When Tasha was at work, she found excuses to linger near him. Casual touches that lasted too long, glances that spoke volumes. Marcus, oblivious at first, brushed it off. He told himself he was imagining things. He loved Tasha. He loved her. But temptation, when planted in proximity, grows wild like weeds. The night everything changed, Tasha was planning a surprise anniversary dinner for Marcus. She wanted to celebrate early. 2 years married, 6 years together, and a lifetime to go. Simone offered to help. Of course she did. The three of them sat around the kitchen table late into the evening, laughing over old stories, sipping wine. Jamari had long since fallen asleep upstairs. When Tasha stepped away to check on the cake in the oven, Simone leaned over to Marcus, her breath warm against his neck. "You deserve more," she whispered. Marcus jerked away, confusion flashing in his eyes. "You're drunk," he muttered, standing quickly, his chair scraping the tiled floor. Simone smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. "Am I?" she said softly. "Or am I just what you've been needing all along?" Before he could respond, Tasha returned, oblivious, smiling so brightly it could have lit the darkest corners of the house. "Everything's perfect," she beamed. And Simone smiled back, that same slow, venomous smile. Perfect. But not for long. The first real fight between Marcus and Tasha happened 2 days later. Over Simone. Tasha refused to believe her friend would ever be inappropriate. "She's going through a hard time," Tasha cried. "She's family." Marcus tried to explain, but the words twisted in his mouth, falling short against Tasha's blind loyalty. That night, Marcus slept on the couch, and Simone stood in the hallway, hidden in the shadows, watching, smiling. A week later, Tasha was dead. The police report listed it as an accident at first. A fall down the basement stairs. Marcus found her early that morning, her body broken, her head twisted at an unnatural angle, a faint trail of blood painting the concrete. Jamari's cries echoed from upstairs, the only sound in the stunned silence. The funeral was a blur of black dresses, tear-streaked faces, and murmured prayers. Marcus stood at the front, Jamari clinging to his leg, his own face a mask of devastation. Simone stayed close, offering silent support, her hand always finding a way to rest on his arm, his back, his hand. The whispers started soon after. She moved in awful fast, didn't she? Poor Tasha. She was always too trusting. But the whispers faded when, just 3 months after the funeral, Simone and Marcus married in a quiet courthouse ceremony. It was what Tasha would have wanted, Simone insisted. For Jamari's sake, she said tearfully to anyone who dared question. And Marcus, hollowed by grief, exhausted by guilt, let it happen. But truth has a way of clawing itself to the surface, especially when the dead refuse to stay silent. Started with small things. A picture frame containing a wedding photo of Marcus and Tasha crashed to the ground one night, shattering into pieces. No windows open. No breeze. Jamari began crying at odd hours, babbling about Mommy being mad. Simone dismissed it as childish grief. Marcus wasn't so sure. Then, one rainy evening, as Simone unpacked an old box Tasha had kept in the attic, a letter fluttered out. A letter Tasha had written to herself only days before her death. The letter spoke of doubts, of Simone's growing intrusiveness, of strange feelings Tasha couldn't explain but couldn't ignore. If anything happens to me, the letter ended, it won't be an accident. Marcus read it over and over again that night, his hands trembling. Had he let a murderer into his bed? Into his son's life? He went to the police the next morning. Detective Layla Monroe was assigned to the case. Sharp-eyed, methodical, and relentless, she quickly found cracks in the story Simone had so carefully crafted. The autopsy report had never sat well with the coroner. The angle of Tasha's injuries, the lack of defensive wounds. Something didn't add up. The stair railing had been wiped clean of fingerprints. Tasha's fingernails were broken, as if she had been fighting, scrambling for purchase. But there was no sign of a struggle, no sign of forced entry. Unless the enemy had been already inside, living among them. Detective Monroe questioned Simone first. Sitting across from her in the cold, gray interrogation room, Simone played the grieving widow role perfectly. "I loved Tasha," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes dramatically. "I would never hurt her. But grief is a heavy costume. It slips at the edges." And Monroe saw it, the cold calculation behind the tears, the tightly clenched fists, the occasional flicker of annoyance. Simone refused a polygraph. Refused to let them search her phone without a warrant. Refused to answer certain questions without a lawyer present. Red flags, all of them. When Monroe visited the house later that week, she noticed something else. Jamari's bedroom had been repainted. New furniture. New everything. It was almost as if Simone was trying to erase every trace of Tasha's presence. But memories linger. Whispers creep through the walls. That night, as Marcus tucked Jamari into bed, the little boy looked up at him, wide-eyed. "Mommy fell because Auntie pushed her," he said simply, as if stating a fact, as if it had been waiting to be said all along. Marcus's blood ran cold. Detective Monroe brought in a forensic team. They combed through the house, through Simone's belongings, her laptop, her phone records. And that's when they found it. A series of messages Simone had sent to a mysterious contact weeks before Tasha's death. The messages spoke of jealousy, of longing, of plans. "It will all be mine soon," one message read. "No more obstacles." The contact had since gone dark. No trace of who it was. But the evidence was growing. And so was the danger. Because someone else knew. Someone was watching. The next morning, Savannah's sleepy streets buzzed with quiet rumors. The news hadn't gone public yet, but secrets have a way of leaking through walls. And in a town like Savannah, whispers traveled faster than truth. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his coffee. His hands, rough and calloused from years of construction work, shook as he tried to lift the cup to his lips. Across from him, Simone moved about the kitchen, humming under her breath, her face a perfect mask of domestic bliss. She kissed the top of Jamari's head as she packed his lunch for preschool, acting every bit the loving stepmother. But Marcus couldn't unhear Jamari's words. "Mommy fell because Auntie pushed her." It echoed in his mind, a relentless drumbeat of guilt and fury. Was it possible? Had he let the woman who destroyed his family slip into Tasha's place? into his life, without even realizing? Marcus clenched his fists. No, he had to be sure. He needed proof. And if Simone was guilty, he would tear down every wall she had built around them. Detective Monroe wasn't wasting time either. Armed with a preliminary warrant, she and her team dug deeper into Simone's digital life. Old text messages, social media accounts long abandoned, emails from burner addresses. A pattern emerged. It wasn't just jealousy. It was an obsession. Simone had been fixated on Marcus and Tasha's life for years, quietly documenting their milestones, tracking Tasha's movements, even saving candid photos she shouldn't have had access to. In one folder hidden deep on Simone's cloud drive, Monroe found something chilling. A crude vision board, pieced together from magazine clippings and screenshots, showing Marcus, Jamari, and Simone herself, smiling together like a perfect family. Tasha's face had been crudely crossed out in black marker, over and over and over again. Meanwhile, Marcus began his own investigation at home. One night, after Simone had gone to bed, he crept downstairs to the basement, the place where Tasha had died. It felt colder there, heavier, as if the walls themselves remembered what had happened. A loose floorboard near the stairs caught his eye. Heart pounding, Marcus pried it up. Inside was a small plastic bag, the kind evidence usually comes in, and within it, a single object, Tasha's wedding ring. The police had found it on her hand during the autopsy. But here it was, hidden. Marcus's head spun. What the hell was going on? And then he saw it. Taped underneath the next step was a tiny recording device, its light long dead. Someone had been recording in the house. And Marcus had a sickening feeling he knew who. The next morning, Marcus confronted Simone. "You ever wonder why Tasha's ring was missing?" he asked casually over breakfast. Simone stiffened almost imperceptibly. Then she smiled, that same dazzling, empty smile. "Probably just fell off when she fell," she said lightly. "You know how loose it was after she lost weight." Marcus nodded, pretending to accept it. But inside, something broke wide open. There was no going back now. Later that day, Marcus met with Detective Monroe privately. He handed over the ring, the recorder, everything he had found. And Monroe's face darkened. "This isn't just circumstantial anymore," she said grimly. "We're building a homicide case." But they had to move carefully. One wrong move, and Simone could disappear, taking Jamari with her. They needed a confession, or something even more damning. Meanwhile, Simone was unraveling. Paranoia gnawed at her. She could feel Marcus pulling away. She could feel the walls closing in. She started drinking more heavily, snapping at Jamari over small things, locking herself in the bedroom for hours. One evening, Marcus came home to find Jamari sitting on the front porch in his pajamas, shivering, because Simone had forgotten he was outside. That was the final straw. Marcus knew he had to protect his son at all costs. Detective Monroe staged a plan. Marcus agreed to wear a wire. It was dangerous. If Simone caught him, there was no telling what she might do. But he was willing to risk it. For Tasha. For Jamari. For his own soul. The confrontation happened 2 nights later. Marcus waited until Jamari was asleep. Then he sat Simone down in the living room, the very room where he had once held Tasha in his arms and dreamed of forever. "I know what you did," he said quietly. Simone froze. Her wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the hardwood floor. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said too quickly. Marcus leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. "You killed her. You pushed her down those stairs." Simone's face twisted, rage, fear, hatred all warring for dominance. "You're wrong," she hissed. "She deserved it. She never appreciated you, Marcus. She was holding you back." Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. "You murdered my wife," he said, every word sharp as broken glass. "And you used my son to replace her." Tears spilled down Simone's face. Not grief, but fury. "You were mine," she screamed. "You were supposed to choose me." The words echoed through the house like a gunshot. And the wire caught it all. Within hours, Detective Monroe had the arrest warrant. They stormed the house at dawn. Simone didn't go quietly. She screamed, clawed, kicked, but it didn't matter. The cuffs clicked around her wrists like the final nails in her coffin. Jamari cried from the doorway, his small voice calling for his mommy. Marcus scooped him up, shielding him from the sight. It was over, or so they thought. But justice is never simple. As Monroe dug deeper, she uncovered a name linked to Simone's burner accounts, the mysterious contact she had been messaging. It wasn't just jealousy and rage that drove Simone. She had help. Someone had been coaching her, encouraging her. Someone who wanted Tasha dead just as badly. Detective Monroe pulled the records late one night. When she saw the identity of Simone's accomplice, she dropped her coffee cup in shock. Because it wasn't some stranger. It was someone far, far closer to Tasha than anyone ever suspected. Someone Tasha had trusted with her life. Someone who was still out there, watching, waiting, and planning their next move. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead was the only sound in the police interrogation room. Simone Hart sat cuffed to the cold metal table, her once pristine hair now disheveled, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hands twisted in her lap, trembling. Detective Monroe sat across from her, a thick manila folder in her hands. "You think it's over," Monroe said quietly. "But it's just beginning." Simone flinched. Her lips trembled as she tried to muster up some of the defiance that once came so easily. "I told you everything," she said, voice cracking. "No," Monroe replied calmly. She flipped the folder open. "You told us your version." She slid a photograph across the table, a screenshot of messages from Simone's burner account. And at the top, a name that Simone couldn't deny. Kennedy Brooks, Tasha's childhood best friend. Her maid of honor. Her sister in everything but blood. Marcus couldn't breathe when Monroe told him. Kennedy. The same Kennedy who had sat in their living room after Tasha's funeral, sobbing uncontrollably? The same Kennedy who had promised to help raise Jamari like her own? The betrayal hit deeper than any wound. He remembered how Tasha had fought to include Kennedy in their lives, despite Marcus's quiet reservations. Tasha was loyal to a fault. And now that loyalty had been the death of her. Detective Monroe moved quickly. Kennedy Brooks was brought in for questioning 2 days later. At first, she played the grieving friend role to perfection. "I can't believe Simone would do something like that," she gasped, dabbing at fake tears. But Monroe was ready. She slammed a printout of Kennedy's bank records onto the table. A suspicious deposit, $10,000, made just 2 weeks after Tasha's death. Care to explain that? Monroe asked coldly. Kennedy's facade crumbled. She slumped forward, burying her face in her hands. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," she sobbed. "I just wanted her gone, not dead." The truth spilled out in pieces. Kennedy, drowning in debt, had been furious when Tasha refused to co-sign on a loan for her failing business. Years of jealousy, of Tasha's happy marriage, perfect son, stable life, boiled over. She had reached out to Simone, feeding the bitterness already brewing in her heart. "You deserve better," Kennedy whispered over countless late-night calls. "Tasha doesn't appreciate what she has. Marcus should have been with someone like you." Together, they crafted a plan. It started small, tiny sabotages to stress Tasha out. Misplaced keys, broken appliances, anonymous nasty letters. The goal was simple: isolate her, break her down, maybe even get her to leave Marcus, so Simone could comfort him. But when that didn't work fast enough, they escalated. The night Tasha died, Kennedy had distracted her with a frantic phone call about an emergency. Panicked and rushing, Tasha never saw Simone waiting at the top of the stairs. One push, one scream, one shattering silence. And then, nothing. The horror of it all was almost too much for Marcus to bear. Tasha had trusted both women with her heart, and they had torn it apart for selfishness and greed. But worse still was the knowledge that Jamari had seen it. His little voice still haunted Marcus at night. "Auntie pushed her. The Judgment Day. The courtroom was ice cold, but Simone Hart sat there burning. Every eye in the gallery was on her. Judgmental, disgusted, including Marcus's. Especially Marcus's. He held Jamari close to his side, the little boy clinging silently to his father's coat, sensing the tension crackling in the air. Simone's once pristine appearance had withered. No more designer clothes. No more soft smiles. Just a hollow shell of the woman Tasha had once trusted with her life. Detective Monroe rose from her seat and gave her final statement to the court. Simone Hart abused the sacred trust placed in her. Tasha Brooks welcomed her into her home, into her life, and in return, she was met with betrayal of the highest order. The evidence is overwhelming. The motive? Greed. The result? A life lost, a child robbed of his mother, a husband shattered. Her voice sharpened. We are asking for the maximum penalty allowed by law. Nothing less will do justice for Tasha Brooks. The jury filed back in after only 3 hours. Marcus barely breathed as the forewoman stood. Guilty, she said, on all counts. Murder in the first degree. Aggravated betrayal. Child endangerment. Simone was charged with first-degree murder. Kennedy faced charges for conspiracy and accessory to murder. Simone's head dropped, her shoulders sagging under the weight of her crimes. There was no dramatic outburst, no last plea, just a broken woman finally facing the ruin she had created. When the judge read the sentence, life without the possibility of parole for Simone, Marcus felt something in his chest loosen for the first time in months. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't even relief. It was quiet. The kind of silence that comes when the worst is finally over. Kennedy Brooks had already pleaded guilty weeks earlier, trading her testimony against Simone in exchange for a reduced sentence. She would serve 25 years without the possibility of early release. Her betrayal had cut nearly as deep, but the court acknowledged her secondary role in the crime. Marcus didn't care. To him, they were both just two sides of the same poisonous coin. After the sentencing, Monroe met Marcus outside the courthouse. The autumn sun was bright but cold on their faces. You fought for her, Monroe said quietly. Tasha would be proud. I hope so, he whispered. Monroe squeezed his shoulder once before walking away. The healing didn't happen overnight. There were still nights when Marcus woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Still moments when Jamari cried out in his sleep, calling for his mother. But bit by bit, they built a new life. Marcus moved them into a smaller home across town, away from the ghosts of the old house. He started working fewer hours, coaching Jamari's little league team. He surrounded them with friends, real ones, who loved them fiercely. And Tasha's memory was everywhere, not in sadness, but in strength. In the way Jamari smiled when he won his first game. In the way Marcus finally laughed again without guilt strangling him. In the way they held each other close, refusing to let pain steal another second from them. Marcus still misses her with every breath he takes. But he knew now that their story didn't end in betrayal. It ended in love. In the legacy they built. In the son they raised. In the lives they touched. Tasha's light wasn't gone. It was everywhere. Alive. Eternal. If this story moved you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps more people find this important case. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful true crime story just like this. And we want to hear from you. What part of this story shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and stay curious.